Greetings everybody, Dracon here, and in case you haven't heard or noticed, Spineless Ubisoft has done it again. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that after 2 years since they released their latest installment in the Assassin's Creed saga, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they have now confirmed the canon gender for the protagonist of this game. They have done this through a free DLC mission they released at the end of 2022, in which basically, and spoilers ahead in case you're not caught on with the story, in this DLC, basically, you end up talking with your past self, that being Odin, since Eivor is a reincarnated version of Odin. And even though it doesn't matter which gender you chose at the beginning of the game, because I chose male and I went through my whole playthrough with male Eivor, it didn't matter because it defaulted me to female Eivor, basically confirming that Eivor was supposed to be female along. Now, before this, there wasn't really any solid confirmation. There were like hints and clues that could be interpreted as basically just them fucking up. Because there is obviously the fact that Eivor is a female name, but that is not really that clear to anyone outside of Scandinavia. There's also the fact that when you're choosing your gender in the game, if you choose Animus Decides, basically it defaults you to female Eivor through the whole playthrough, except for the parts in which you're playing as Odin himself, that are basically memories of Eivor in a sense. Now, besides those two, like, you could call solid clues that, pointed to Eivor always being female, there was like these other factors that were in the game that just could be interpreted as them fucking up, because there is like this side quest in the London map in which you basically help a senile old man, and this senile old man, it doesn't matter if you chose male Eivor or female Eivor, it will always confuse you with his daughter. Now, like, again, that could be just a fuck up, them not scripting in that, like, oh, you remind me, like, you're my son or whatever, It just defaults you to, oh, you're my daughter. It does, like, again, it could be just a fuck up. There's also the fact that in the buyable DLC, I think is the one that takes place in France. Basically, after you finish the game, you will receive a letter in which you're referred as Varin's daughter. That basically means daughter of Varin. And again, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, because I was male and I didn't, in the letter I wasn't referred to as Varin's son. There will be son of Varin. There's also the fact that in the comic they released, I think a few months after the release of the game in 2020, they basically depict Eivor as female. That, in my opinion, is dumb just from a marketing standpoint, because they could have just make the same comic, just change female Eivor for male Eivor, and keep the facade if that is what they wanted, of having a choice. And last like main hint or clue, you could say, is the fact that in Fortnite they release a like collaboration skin with Assassin's Creed, and being Eivor, you actually cannot choose like the male version of Eivor for the skin. You basically just have the female Eivor as the skin you can buy. Either way, those are like all the main hints or clues, and most are basically like just them fucking up or just them being lazy. It feels that way, at least. Besides the two first like clues I talked about. And like basically all these just like supposedly confirm like Eivor was always supposed to be female. But again, like most of them are, they could be interpreted as just fuck ups from Ubisoft's side and laziness. But to counter these, like all these hints and clues I gave, there's like two main factors that contradicts the fact that Eivor was supposed to always be female, or at least confirmed female. Because even if you finish the recent free DLC, the last chapter, the one that I told you about that basically confirms Eivor's gender, if you get out of the Animus and go to Eivor's remains in the present, you basically still see that Eivor's pelvic bone is still hidden, and that is supposed to be like a clever way of them saying like, oh, we don't know if he's a he or she's a she, you know, and that still remains even today. Like it didn't change after this free DLC. And again, that could mean that this was just a fuck up from their part and they were just being lazy and they didn't put male Eivor if you chose male Eivor as your main gender for the game. And there's also the fact that with a collaboration with the manga or series named Vinland Saga, they released a manga or comic, however you want to call it, in which basically Eivor is also depicted as male. And as far as I know, in this manga of Vinland Saga, it doesn't have like an alternate version in which Eivor is female. So like again, this kind of counters, the main clues of Eivor being female, like that I mentioned earlier. So like, but basically at this point they have confirmed that Eivor is female, because it's really hard to like argue against like the latest DLC and them just deciding to be that lazy. It could be because it's Ubisoft, but either way, like, and what is the point of me ranting about this? It just kind of feels deceitful. It's the same way they fucking did it with Odyssey. They like, one of the main selling points was that you could choose and your choices matter, and like you could choose either protagonist and it will be canon. And then they released a novel that basically just depicted Cassandra. And later on, in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, ironically, they released a DLC in which it didn't matter which gender you picked, you will always get like to meet Cassandra in that DLC. So it's kind of, it just feels like they sold their game bad faith, like they're trying to be deceitful just to trick you into buying a game that maybe you wouldn't be that interested in if you didn't have the choice of choosing your gender, etc. Either way, like at this point, Ubisoft isn't really known for their backbone or sticking to their decisions. Either way. And now, as a side note, because this is something that I have been thinking about ever since I finished the game, like back in 2020, or I think 2021, it doesn't matter. Like, there is these hairstyles. I will put them on the screen, and I'm just thinking, why didn't they add them as a customization option for Eivor? Like, even if you could argue that these both hairstyles are like very male-like, that wouldn't make sense because there's a lot of male only options in the game for Eivor. Like, I still wouldn't understand why they haven't added it, because even one of these hairstyles is actually appears as the actual hairstyle of Odin when you see like their Isu forms, like the true Isu forms. So I don't know, it just feels kind of weird that they haven't added these hairstyles in the game. But either way, tell me what you think about those hairstyles and the overall fact that they confirmed that Eivor is female. I hope to hear your thoughts and to see you next time. Goodbye.